Hi, welcome back to No Way. Tell me everything. My name is Jess. I am your host as always. Today we have a solo episode, and I'm going to be talking about a mishmash of things, methinks. Mainly, we'll be talking about what's going on with the current energy. We are closing the eclipse gateway, portal, corridor, whatever you want to call it, here on Tuesday, the 3rd, with a full moon eclipse in Virgo. We also have Mercury retrograde until the 20th of March, and I feel like a lot of us have been down in the depths, got a lot of stuff going on. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and what to expect coming up. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some stuff in my life that's going on that will probably affect the podcast a little bit and what I'm doing. And then finally, we're going to talk about the universe as a mirror and what that actually means and how we work with it. I think it's a super important thing to do and talk about. It's been very helpful for me in my journey as a teacher. And so I think that we need to talk about it, maybe teach you a few tips and tricks. And so let's get started. So how is everyone feeling? How's everybody communicating? Any problems with your partner? I feel like every single woman that I know right now in the past week or the past 2 weeks has had some sort of difficult discussion with their partner. And I talk to a lot of spiritual women and a lot of non-spiritual women who have been saying the same thing, that it's like the feminine anger in this eclipse season has been really bubbling up to the surface. I'm not putting up with this anymore. I deserve better. You're not a true partner. You're not helping out with anything. You're not doing anything. You've given up. You just stopped caring, whatever it is. It feels like there has been a lot of disillusionment, which is the Neptune, right? And Saturn, which is the foundation. Because again, this is revolutionary astrology. Now, I want to make a caveat to this because I think it's very important. I haven't talked about this, but a lot of astrologers right now are being very dramatic when they talk about the fact that this is revolutionary astrology. This leads a lot of people to think that in their personal lives, the transformations, the changes, the things are going to be huge. The reality of the situation is that they could be, but a lot of the times, this kind of astrology is collective or it's based on really big themes. And if you don't have those themes in your chart, then you're not going to experience that. And the reason I think it's important to say this is that this can cause anxiety and panic in people who don't know how to compare with their chart or read with their chart. So if you ever have anxiety about something because of a big transition or something that you heard from an astrologer and you're like, oh God, my relationship's going to end or something, I would advise you to either learn about your own personal astrology so that you can actually fit it into your chart and be like, oh wait, no, this is in a different house. It's not going to affect me that way. Or I have an easier transit of these things, or they're not in a hard aspect to each other. Like these kind of complicated things can be a lot. So if that's the case, you can always reach out to me. If I'm available, I will try to help out, or you can book a reading. Don't sit around being anxious. The other thing is that in my philosophy, my belief system, if an event is meant to happen, it's going to happen. So you can worry about a relationship ending for as long as you want to worry about it. If there's meant to be a reckoning in your relationship, there will be a reckoning. A lot of times, I think what people is they immediately go to the worst case scenario. So they go, oh my God, something big is going to happen in my relationship. I'm going to break up. Or I will be honest that this has crossed my mind this time that something bad would happen to my husband and I would be alone because it was in my 7th house of marriage and partnerships. And I usually go to the worst case scenario as a knee-jerk reaction. So it does take that mindset training to be like, hold on, horsey. That's not necessarily what that means. It just means something big could happen. For example, like I was expecting something not monumental, but something around the foundations of a relationship to come up because of that Saturn Neptune conjunction in Aries, which for me, again, personally, when I look at my chart, is in my house of partnerships, which could be business partnerships. It can be marriage. It can be any sort of like partnership with somebody. So I was expecting something to come up and something did come up, something around our communication that affects our everyday lives and how we kind of run our family. it did come up and it was a big discussion and we talked about it and everything's fine now and it was for the better. And I know some of the people that I coach or I speak with, I gave similar advice to them of like, don't think that it's going to be the worst case scenario. Generally, I believe, well, I fully believe this. I think it's a lot, sometimes it's really hard to see it, but I fully believe that everything happens for your alignment, for whatever needs to move you forward. So you might be viewing it as really negative, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be negative. You might have to have a very uncomfortable conversation. That is part of life. Maybe the whole point of it is to get you comfortable with having uncomfortable conversations. Or maybe you have the uncomfortable conversation with your partner and then actually they're really receptive to it because it was something that was understandable that it was bothering you or that it was a problem in the foundation of your relationship. And then they start making changes towards whatever that was, or you make changes together and it strengthens the relationship. So it's very long ADHD explanation just to say, if you see a lot of this revolutionary astrology, what they mean by that is, yes, it could be a really big transit because, for example, Neptune and Saturn, again, haven't met up for like, I don't know, I think it was like 2000 years or something. But that's why it's called revolutionary astrology because big things tend to happen in this period, which we have seen. We have seen that that's going on with the bombing of Iran, and there was a conviction of South Korean leader on trying to dismantle democracy. And there was a lot of big rulings in the EU and other places. So there was a lot of really big monumental things going on. However, that does not it's more about the fact that it doesn't happen often. And when it does happen, we see these big collective changes. And again, that's because you have two collective planets. It's revolutionary just means that it's like crazy astrology. Like it's not something that you see every single year. There's some things that you see every single year in astrology because the planets are fast moving. So they're going to orbit through all of them. They're going to meet up in different places. Like that's common. It's the uncommon transits, placements, conjunctions, oppositions, squares, those kind of aspects that they're really talking about when they say revolutionary astrology. Now, going back to my original point, this whole freaking eclipse corridor was revolutionary astrology. You know, we had the new moon on the date of the fire horse, right? On the date of the eclipse. And then you had a bunch of revolutionary meetups and things going on in these past 2 weeks. And then you have Mercury retrograde happening in the eclipse portal. And then now we have this full blood moon, I think it is, eclipse in Virgo on Tuesday, right? So it has been an intense transformational time, both collectively and internally. And so I hope that you've been resting. If you haven't been, give yourself some time to rest, especially this full moon is intense. I think I talked about this on Instagram maybe, but normally when you have an eclipse season, it's the full moon first, followed by a new moon. And the way that kind of feels to me is the hardest part of eclipse season is at the beginning because the hardest part is the full moon, which is shedding, right? But I think maybe the universe did us a solid this year because we had just had a whole year of shedding. And so they were like, I'm going to flip it and we'll do the new moon first, where you get a glimpse of the future. You get a glimpse of the possibilities or, and that's not always a positive thing, by the way, because it's an eclipse. So just if you're like, I didn't get that, you probably did, just not in the way you're thinking about it. Like maybe something really bad happened, but it was giving you a glimpse of where you're going when this thing's gone, right? Like maybe it caused you to look at your future and be like, this is an option for my future. Like I'm maybe going to be doing this thing. Like maybe you got laid off or something, or you, yeah, let's go with laid off. So maybe you got laid off or something. So you're like, Jess, that definitely didn't happen. That's more like a full moon eclipse. And I would normally say, yeah, that's true. But I think the thing is maybe when you got laid off, you had these daydreams or these feelings of maybe I'm not going to go back to work at corporate. Maybe I'm going to start that business I've always been thinking of now that I have 4 months of pay, right? But then you get sucked back into the old identity because we're in between two identities right now. So if you felt pulled back in different ways of being or pulled forward, but then you're back and, you're out of your comfort zone, then you're back in your comfort zone, it's because it's the sticky in-between phase where the energies are kind of ping-ponging you back and forth and you're not quite anchored in the new yet. So that the new moon in the beginning was very much about dreaming of the different future that you could have if you go with this new identity. And then because I believe that everyone has free will, it's how you play it. Do you lean into the energy of the new, or do you keep pulling yourself back into the identity of the old? Because once you get through this second eclipse, this full moon eclipse, this is the shedding. So everything bad that's happened in the past 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks for you, everything, I'm just speaking about you. I'm not speaking about collective right now. Anything that's happened in those 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it doesn't matter. The time period, let's go with that before I get obsessed about it. Anything that has happened in this time period, anything you realized is not working for you. And I'll talk about this later because I had a huge realization yesterday. Maybe you have little like pings of like, oh, this would be fun to do this, or I could try doing this, or maybe I want to move here, or this isn't working for me anymore. All of these things are like adding up, right? You're throwing things on a pile, okay? And then with the full moon eclipse, somebody's going to come with a broom, the universe is going to come with a broom, and they're going to sweep it out the door. So this is the shedding. And I actually wish that like every eclipse was like this, because I personally find it really nice to understand where I'm going and then be able to see in this time period all the little ways that I'm keeping myself from going in that direction and shedding them a little by little, like putting them to the side and actively taking steps away from them. And then having this full moon come in and sweep it out the door and I'm off, right? I think that's the best way. That's the best way for me to handle it. We all have different ways of handling it. That's how I like handling it. So maybe it helps. Now, to be fair, the full moon is tomorrow, so it's not like I put this out in a timely manner, but last week was really Mercury in retrograde for me, and I was deep in my eclipse portal, so there was no way I was gonna be able to put out anything good in that week. So my apologies. I hope that you had an okay eclipse portal, and maybe just put this in your back pocket for next time. So, what's the energy look like after this? Well, I have generally been feeling for a fairly long time that mid March is significant in some way. I don't actually know why. It hasn't come to me as of yet. I think for like the past, I don't know, I would have to ask somebody I've been telling this to because I really am bad with time periods. But I think it's been at least since summer. I've been getting this message that mid March is significant. Now, mid March is the beginning of the astrological new year. It's when we move into Aries, which is the first sign of the zodiac. So part of me thinks maybe that's just what I'm picking up on, but it doesn't feel completely like that's the only thing. And it's also because I talk a lot about this teacup ride analogy of like when a planet is spinning in one direction and then it goes into retrograde, there's this shadow period where they stop the spin. And then you know how you have to start pulling in the other direction and it's sticky and it's hard and it's like, and then it starts spinning faster and faster until it's that. And then when you want to change direction again, you do the same thing. And I call that the shadow period, which is when there's still like this weird, sticky, lingering energy, but it's not quite in its full energy yet. The same thing goes for transits of planets through signs. And I feel the same thing goes for the astrology and specifically for the Chinese New Year for the horse. This is the feeling I've been getting. The horse is just warming up right now. It hasn't started running. And I feel like mid March is when it starts going. So that energy that we've been promised, this really quick energy, this keep up energy, the go, 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 the clarity, the understanding, whatever. I have a feeling mid March is when that's going to pick up. I have not looked at the astrology. I really try not to look too far in ahead with astrology. This is personally the way that I like to work with it because I do get anxious and I do try to figure out what's going on. And it's not good for my headspace. So I really only check about a week ahead. If there's any big things going on, I'll stay aware of that. But with the exception of some bigger things happening like June, July, August, like it's nominal. It's not nominal. It's probably going to affect you, but I don't do weekly. So again, if you want weekly, there's lots of really good astrologers who do weekly. I like to listen to Sabrina Lynn's weekly. She goes through the themes for the week, gives some examples. Again, it's very esoteric. It's much more high level astrology. I personally like that because I think astrology is so much more than just your sun sign. But if you don't like her, there are a lot of really good astrologers doing this. I think the other one I used to listen to is called the Astrologers Lounge, maybe. There's one by a guy named Oak. He does it. Astrology Dome does it. There's a lot of really good ones out there if you want to know what's going up for your week. But again, I like Sabrina Lynn's. Her energy is insane, but I kind of love it. So yeah. So I think that there's going to be a lot more movement coming up, a lot more things going on where we start to see it. But we do still have the Mercury retrograde until the 20th of March. So just be thoughtful with your communications, tech glitches, travel delays, any of that kind of stuff. Signing contracts, be really careful. Like that kind of stuff is always affected by Mercury retrograde. So yeah, that's kind of that situation. Now let's move on to some interesting personal things going on that may affect this podcast and everything I do, honestly. I'm not going to get into too much detail just because I'm moving slower than I normally do with this on purpose. This is one of the learnings that I have, moving with intention without burnout from my past year. So I have been doing mostly one on one work, and quietly in the background, something has been waking up in me that has slept for almost a year. So I think most people who listen to this podcast know me to some degree. But if you don't know me, hi, I would love to know who you are. So if you want to send me a message on Instagram and just let me know that you listen to the podcast, I would really love that. I just like to know who's listening. But I, for 15 years prior to leaving corporate, I worked in advertising, marketing, and branding. And I was very good at that job. Very good at the strategy, the creative development, the leadership, the guidance. I had a lot of really large teams under me for most of it. And I was always put on these really big projects, really high profile things. I did the ladder climb. At one point, I worked at the agency for 11 years working on huge clients, all the pitches, and I did all the actual presentations. I did a lot of the work helping to develop the creative and develop the actual pitch content and pitch to the clients. And then onboard, I did all this big marketing, branding, creative work, strategy work. Um, and I loved it. I really did love it. But the constraints of the places that I was working with took their toll on me. The old way of working and being as a woman in corporate was that you had to be a good soldier. You had to hide yourself. You had to be acceptable. You have to fit inside the box. You have to model the behavior and the personhood that they're comfortable with being around. Otherwise, you're a liability. And then you're either laid off or demoted or silenced, or you know what I mean? Like, this is a common story for everybody. And I really believe in not buying into that or feeding into that system anymore. And so that is the longest story ever, just to say that the past couple weeks, something has been awakening more inside of me because I did love all of the work that I did, and I was amazingly good at it because of how I think differently and how I question everything. And I don't just take things at face value. That's why my work was so good. And also because I'm very good at leading people and helping them discover and teaching them how to do the kind of work that results in the best for everybody, right? Where everybody feels fulfilled by it. And I have been quietly working with a few women on their branding and marketing strategies, helping them define their brand, helping them define their direction, who they are. I obviously am not scared about expressing myself in the way that feels authentic to me. And so I've also been helping people understand themselves better through the lens of coaching and guiding and understanding your background and where you come from. But also, I truly believe that tools like astrology are crazy helpful in understanding how you express yourself and what your medicine is to the world. How is everyone's expression is medicine. You might not feel that way, but it is. The thing is that we always think of expression as speaking, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's writing or serving or painting or building. Like, there's so many different ways to express yourself that is the medicine. So I really believe that there's a different way of expressing ourselves, both in our personal brand. If you want to work at corporate, if you want to do the corporate girly thing, that's totally valid. How do you harness your strengths the most to do the best work? And how do you do it in a way that feels authentic to you? That's like personal branding, right? Or if you want to be able to be visible in your expression. So if you want to be able to speak online or publicly in a confident way, I can help with those kind of things as well, because I can help you get past those visibility blocks by understanding as well how to express yourself, but also how to regulate yourself when it feels really scary, because it does. And then there's the work that I've been doing for 15 years of actually developing the logo and the color scheme and the strategy and the messaging pillars, and how do you actually create content? What content pillars do you have? Like, all of this branding marketing side of me has come back to life. And I think it died for a really long time. I went really far away from that after everything that happened, and it's now coming back. So That's all to say that I have started doing branding services that I'm calling embodied branding, again, because it's a different way of doing branding. The way that I believe in doing business is when we serve from a place of authenticity and authentic expression and wanting to heal through service to others, we don't only heal ourselves, but we heal the others that are working with us. And that ripple goes out into the world. So whether it's a product, a service, it's you, it's whatever, when it comes from authenticity, that's when it's going to be the most helpful and ethical and moral and fulfilling and happy. That's the ethos of my business. The mission is just to inspire and empower women to build something that feels real to them and to help them express themselves and feel safe in that visibility on a public stage. You might be thinking, there's already so many voices, but there's actually the great thing about that is like, not every voice resonates with everybody. Your specific story, your brand of medicine, your expression, whatever you want to call it, will resonate with a group of people. So it's not about how can I make the most money by reaching the largest target audience possible that has the biggest profit, tracker that we can actually make the most money from them. It's not about that. It's about how can I make money in service to others while they're also getting value for this? Because don't get me wrong, I like money. I like comfortability. I am a Taurus and Libra rising. Like comfort and nice things, that's my jam. It's not that I say you should do things for free or you should output yourself too much without getting an energetic exchange for it. But it's just this predatory business tactics and the way that we've been running businesses. I think it really needs to change. And I think it starts by individuals choosing to be authentic in their expression and seeing how the fulfillment grows and how the universe lines up when you're in alignment. And so, therefore, the title of this podcast is probably going to change. My desire to do this podcast has slightly changed. It's still about introducing spiritual concepts, talking about witchcraft, talking about somatic healing. It's all those things, but all those things tie to what I do. And so having something called No Way Tell Me Everything, it's not connected in any way to what I do. So if you see the podcast name change, again, I'm not doing anything during the eclipse portal, but if you see the podcast name change, that's what's going on. And I just wanted to share that with you. Anywho, universe is a mirror. So you've probably heard this term before. It's quite often used, especially people a lot of times use it as relationships as a mirror. I think that everything is a mirror in a way. So not every single thing that you do is a mirror. Like you don't make coffee and it's showing you something. We're not going to go that far. But when you're attuned to yourself, when you are connected to your guides, they will use what's available to communicate with you. So that is interactions, relationships, circumstances, things around you. And so when you have your awareness open, when your eyes are open, when you're attuned to what's going on, you get this little feeling of like, oh, this is not just this. This is something else. And I'll give you an example. So I was meeting up with a friend yesterday and it was sunny. It was the first sunny day in Denmark in March. And like every single year, just like every single month when I get my period and I'm like, oh my God, I got my period. Weird. Like, it's like I forget that they trick you because you get the first sunny day, it's March and you're like, yay, spring. But actually, it's still like -4. The wind is insane because the sun's out. So there's no cloud cover. So I got tricked, y'all. And I was like, I'm going to bike to meet my friend because I didn't get to work out. I'll do this as my exercise. Boy, howdy was it. It was crazy windy. And so I got on my bike. I got like maybe a block away from my house, and the gust of wind was like 25 miles per hour. I can't remember what it was because I looked it up. It was something with a 5. It was like 15 or 25. It was a lot. Okay. And it literally smacked me in the face. And then it didn't stop. It wasn't like one gust of wind. It was like I hit the wind corridor and I had to bike that direction for a good, I mean, it says it was going to take me 20 minutes to get to the place on bike. And I think most of that was just straight in that direction. There was like a couple times where it wasn't, but it was mostly that direction. That was the direction I was going. And so I immediately go, this is difficult. Do I go turn back and cancel, or do I bike to the nearest metro and then take a metro? And immediately I had this feeling of this is a metaphor. And when I opened up to that, um, what I kind of downloaded or heard in that moment was, this is a metaphor for your life right now. When things get difficult, you quit or you try to find an easier way out of it, or you distract yourself. You have gone soft in your year of comfort and joy. You swung way too hard in the other way. And now when things are difficult, you give up. And that's not who you are. And I was like, damn it, this is a metaphor. I've got a bike there now. So I biked there. I was like, all right, well, I'm putting on some like high music, some like get me going music. So I put on BBNO dollar sign and Connor Price. I keep getting Instagram videos with them and they make me bop. So I was like, okay, I don't really know much about these people, but we're putting it on. Um, I biked there and it was really hard. When I got there, my friend was like, girl, you need to sit down. I literally thought I might throw up or pass out. I was so tired. I thought I was having a heart attack. It was difficult, but I did it. And I felt really good that I did it. And I felt really good on the way back. And then you're going to go, that's great, Jess, because you biked one direction, headwind. So then the lesson is that, once you get through it on the way back, it's tailwind. But you'd be wrong because I live in Denmark and you might not know this, but it is always a headwind, no matter which direction you're going. It's just how much of a headwind. So I still had to bike home in a slight headwind. However, I felt really good. I was even bopping along a little bit. And I felt like I am capable. I had all these kind of thoughts during the bike ride of, I am fully capable of doing this. I just don't want to. And that's kind of what's been happening is that I've been distracting myself a lot with all of my lovely crafts. And don't get me wrong, I love those lovely crafts and I'm not giving them up. But I can look back and notice that when things got particularly sticky, I would suddenly have a really big new craft project. So there's one that I've been putting off for a few days now because I can recognize that that's what's going on. So this is just to say sometimes these events happen to teach you something, right? And it also happens in relationships. If you're having an interaction with somebody or sometimes something happens in someone else's life and it forces you to rethink or confront something in your own relationship or your own life, those are mirrors for you. And it's up to you how you use them and if you learn from them. I would say a little bit like patterns, mirrors kind of work the same way, I feel. So you might notice a trend where you're seeing the same kind of pattern or behavior or situation pop up around you in your friends or in your relationships or your daily life, whatever. These are meant to teach you things. And the reason they keep popping up is because you're not catching on. Once you catch on, normally you'll find that you don't notice it as much or you don't see it as much, which is the opposite of this kind of, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like when you see something, you become more aware of it, your field of awareness or something like that. This works opposite because it's there, the energy is there to teach you something. So as soon as you realize that this is what's going on and you actually look into what this is telling you, then it's no longer needed. So then you won't see it pop up as much, right? So this could be a friend tells you something and you immediately have this like almost trigger response of like, I don't like that, or that doesn't sit right with me. And then you talk to another friend and they tell you something similar where you have the same feeling of like, this doesn't make sense, or I don't like this. And then it happens again. And then suddenly you're like, wait, this is weird. Why is this happening? And then you notice it's because there's this thing I haven't been dealing with in myself around something around this issue. And then suddenly it doesn't happen anymore because now you're aware about it. And even if you do something about it or not, you're aware. Now, if you don't do anything about it, there's a very good chance that it pops up again at another time. Like the energy will come when it's best meant to be worked with for you personally. So that's just something that you might be noticing. I've certainly been noticing it a lot lately. But I find that the more aware and open I am and my ability to see the difficulties in my life, especially, and the challenges and stuff for what they are, and not that they're just there to make my life difficult, but they're showing me something. When you look at that, it really does help you introspect in a very grounded, embodied way because it's your everyday life, right? When you do these big spiritual deep dives, let's call them. Let's say you do meditations or you go to spiritual retreat or you do energy healing. These things are all great. I'm not downing them. I do all of these things. But a lot of times the information that I get there is very like higher level. Maybe this is just me speaking, so if it's not, you disregard it. But a lot of times it's like higher level. So it's things like, "Ugh, you were always worthy," or, um and I'm gonna cut out this, like, long silence that I take if my guides would just, like, help me with something. You always knew what to do. You always had that information inside of you. Like, it's these more motivational, high level, conceptual things a lot of the time. Whereas the stuff that you experience in your day-to-day life is more embodied because you're going through it. It's not something that you receive through your crown chakra, for example, or your third eye. It's literally things that you're experiencing in your physical body. And I will say this until I'm blue in the face. Being a human is about experiencing being a human. So when you're connected to the spiritual side, it allows you a higher knowledge, a higher connection, a bigger picture, but you're meant to learn your lessons in your daily life, in your 3D. You can't fully be in the spiritual space and do what you're meant to do here, what your soul came here to do, to evolve to, whatever. So I feel like these lessons that you get in your daily life are the most important ones. The realizations that you have in your daily life while you're just doing something. And then you suddenly have this realization, those are such bigger catalysts for transformation, for actual transformation, because they're embodied. And that's why I call everything I do embodied, because my goal in life is to get you to embody the changes, embody the future, embody the knowledge that you're taking in, because knowledge without action is useless. I mean, it's not useless. You can continue to spread this, but until you put it into action, it's not going to cement itself into your reality. And even though everything is possible, and I fully believe that, and you can manifest till you're blue in the face thinking about everything you want, if you don't embody what you're trying to bring in, if you don't embody the lessons you need to learn in order to get to where you're going, you're not going to get there. So that's why I think it's really good to understand the universe as a mirror, your daily life, maybe we should call it. Your life is a mirror because your life is guiding you as well. And a lot of times we just don't see it this way, right? Another example could be like you just have these small things happen all the time, right? These little tiny irritating things all the time. Like okay, let's go back to my parking ticket. So back during Corona times, I got parking tickets out the wazoo every single time I would get a fucking parking ticket. And there was two things that came to me with that. The one thing is I needed to get an automatic digital parking meter because we'd been talking about it for a really long time and had never done it. And I always forgot to set the parking timer because I'm ADHD and I forget shit if it's not like written down right in front of my face. So that was one practical thing, right? It's never like I'm saying this is only because of spiritual. Like practically, there was something that was not being done. So I needed to do it. So that's why I kept getting it as like this reminder of get your digital parking disc. So we did that. That was the practical. But also, what I kind of realized there was that when I got a parking ticket, I would rage. It would ruin my day. It really was the worst thing ever. And they kept happening. And I hated paying the money so much. I literally was like, now I have to sacrifice something else in my life because I got to pay this fucking ridiculously high parking ticket because they are ridiculously high here. And I would hate it so much that I never paid them. Morton paid them. Like I didn't, I was like, I can't do this. Right. That was pointing out to me some very big money issues, some scarcity issues and money issues that I was holding on to that needed to be dealt with. So there was like a two-prong learning thing in this constant irritating thing that I was getting. One, practical, get your fucking digital parking disc. And second was you need to work on this belief that you're holding on to that this is a lot of money. Because most people would be irritated about it and they would pay it and they would move on. For you, you rage about it for like a day and then you sacrifice something else for this parking ticket. Like it is a lot of money for some people. I won't say it's not, but for the money that I was making at that time, it was literally nothing. It was like, it was nothing. It was not a big deal. But I hated paying for things. And I hated paying for these kind of things. So sometimes these things, when they're happening over and over and over again, instead of just continuing in that path of being raging about it, like you have to take a step back and be like, what am I missing here? Now, I hate that I always have to say caveats, but it is just who I am. There are situations that I do not think you should consider as mirrors. Things like abuse. They are not mirrors in that they are not saying anything about you. They're not saying you deserve abuse. They're not saying anything like that. That is bull S if anyone has ever told you that. That is not what it is. But that situation is probably still telling you something that you're needing to do. And I would say, in the case of abuse, what you're needing to do is get out. I know it's not easy for everyone, and I know there's a lot of issues around that. So it's always personal to, if you feel like you can't get out, you should definitely call a hotline, call a service, call a women's shelter, do anything you need to do to secure your safety. That's the most important thing. All of these other reflections and things come after. This is not something that you do in the moment. The most important thing is survival and safety. And then later, when we've gotten through it and we've processed everything, then you can see if there was anything the situation was telling you. But not everything needs to be looked at as, what is this mirror telling me about myself? And in all actuality, a lot of times the mirrors are not mirrors of your shame or your guilt or what you're not doing right. It's an opportunity to understand where you could expand or where you could grow, but it's not a judgment of you. So, like, if we go back to my bike example, everything that came there was not a reprimand. It wasn't a judgment or a reprimand on what I'm doing. It was just making me aware that this is how I've been operating, that I personally have been putting myself in a box. I have let myself dim my light. I have discarded a part of myself because somebody else made me feel like that was not good enough. And that's not actually how I feel about it. It was just making me aware of it. How I move forward with that information is my own. But the mirrors just show us some things, right? Like a magical mirror. Like a magical, well, is there ever like a good magical mirror? I feel like they're only, like, even the one in the Harry Potter series was kind of bad because people would just get obsessed with that. But okay, I'm not going to try to find one. This episode's already really long and I want to do cards. Because it's eclipse season, we're going to do a tarot card first. I don't normally do tarot cards because tarot cards are already ominous in themselves normally, but I feel like this eclipse season deserves a tarot. But then I have my goddess cards as well. So we will also do a little uplift here at the end. All right, guides, may I please have a tarot card to guide us for this episode of what information we need to know, be aware of? Guys, that's too many. One card. Hey, here we go. Oh, internal conflict. Internal conflict. So we got today. There is a lot of us are feeling this confliction right now. I mean, I don't even feel like I need to read this because it's basically what we talked about in the beginning about feeling like there's just a lot going on. But right now, there's external conflict and there's a lot of internal conflict. We're just in a period of conflict right now. Astrologically, Mars is really prominent in the astrology right now. And so it makes sense that there's a lot of conflict. But during this period, a lot of us are dealing with feeling many different ways about stuff. On the one hand, we want something better, but on the other hand, maybe we feel like we're fighting that that's even possible to have something better. Maybe you're dreaming of a future that you want. You're dreaming of this new business that you're starting, but part of you is like, who are you to think you can do this? Of course you can't do this. This is too hard. You should just go get a job back in corporate now and just give up. It's fine. Oh, it's easier that way. Might have been a little personal on that one. Or, it could be also, should I stay? Should I go? There's a lot of internal conflict right now. There's a lot of different ways of feeling, and it's maybe not even just a duality. Maybe it's like 5 different things making you feel that way. The feeling I'm getting actually is they kind of just want us to sit with this. There's lessons in this. The clarity is going to come when we get through the portal. You'll start to peter out or like lose some of this conflict, and it will become more clear of where you're going and what you're doing for those of us who are sitting with it and feeling it. It kind of feels like you have to acknowledge and say bye to each of these characters, these conflicts, different versions of yourself. You cannot say bye to them until you've acknowledged it. So for those of us who are allowing ourselves to sit in this difficult time and acknowledge it, when we get through the portal, it's going to be able to move in a direction that feels more clear for you. But if you're fighting it, you're just going to carry these people through with you. So what you want to do is resolve that conflict, understand where the conflict is coming from. And to do that, you have to sit with it. Don't intellectualize it, because a lot of us have a tendency to try to figure out and understand what the conflict is. But a lot of times, if you just let yourself feel the feelings and sit with it and acknowledge it, it becomes really clear almost instantly of what is actually going on. But our mind will try to think up a scenario that's not always it. I really get the feeling that right now you're meant to be sitting with these different versions, and those versions will go away. It's like the last battle, or closure is what I'm hearing. It's like closure that's going on right now. So you have to sit with this, as difficult as it feels like. I'm hearing you have to be willing to go to war for what you want. And that might be because Athena, my girl, is helping me out lately, and she's the goddess of battle, wisdom, and strategy. But I'm hearing you have to be able to you have to want to go to war for what you want, or be able to go to war for what you want. And that's not a nice statement, actually, to considering what's going on in the world. So just think of it from a strategy standpoint, or a perseverance standpoint, is what it's feeling like. Like, when you're not clear on why you want something or where you're going, and you're not clear with yourself of what it's going to take to get there, that it's going to be uphill sometimes, that it's going to be difficult, but it's going to be crazy worth it. When you have not fully accepted and embodied that idea, you won't fully be able to go on an easier path to getting there, because you're going to be carrying all these characters and old versions with you who are going to keep fighting you at every step of the way, basically. Practical example of this would be like for me with this new business. Like, if I don't acknowledge why I'm feeling and applying to corporate jobs, even though I know that that's not really what I want to do, but if I'm not acknowledging the fact that there is still a part of me who is scared to go it alone and have to do the hard work and do the difficult stuff, and it feels easier to just go to corporate and let somebody else tell me what to do, because I'm in an area where I don't always know what I have to do and I have to figure it out myself, and that feels scary. If I don't acknowledge that, I'm going to continue to carry this version of myself with me who, whenever things get difficult, goes and applies for jobs. So that's a practical example of how that could show up in your life. Or if you don't acknowledge that you're unhappy in a relationship or a friendship, and understand why, and speak to the person about that, or reckon with yourself about it, depending on what the right action is there, it'll just continue to go with you throughout the next year. So that was our tarot. And then let's do an oracle. La la la. A goddess oracle today. Let's see what they want to say. Which goddess wants to say something to us today? Whoa. Whoa. Hey. Hey, girl. Hey. Ooh. Love this for us. Okay, we got Isis and Kali. Oh, I didn't even tell you what the other tarot card was. It was Five of Wands reversed. Um, okay. Isis is rebirth and Kali is liberation. And you know what? It's so great because I literally just planned the women's circle with my friend Steph, the intuitive naturopath, and it's about rebirth. So this is actually so on brand with what I'm feeling with the energies. But I really feel, especially with spring coming, with the equinox coming, Ostara, and with what's going on in the world, I think I talked about this in the 2026 energy reading for the year, but this period of the year, what came out was connection to our intuition, specifically the feminine rising and being done. And that's collectively, but also personally. Like, you're not putting up with the ways you're playing small anymore. You're no longer stopping yourself from following your dreams, from stepping into who you are, or for some of us, for stepping back and actually being like, I'm not doing it the same way I always did it. I want to be free. Right? These cards speak so much to that. And what's really, really coming through here is that we are the instruments that free ourselves. There's something around understanding that, and this sounds so bleak and it's not meant to, so please switch a little mindset here. No one is coming to save us. We have to do it ourselves. We have to liberate. We have to rebirth and liberate ourselves. We have to come through this portal as a new version of ourselves, whatever that means for you. And the liberation will come as we embody this version of ourselves. That freedom, that authenticity, that fulfillment, all those feelings that we're longing for, those things are coming with this rebirth and liberation. Don't get stuck in the birth canal, is what I'm feeling. There might be a tendency to try to go back. It's very comforting and warm and cozy in the womb. You don't want to leave it here. You're taken care of. You don't have to worry about it. Everything's nice. It's cozy, it's dark. You don't have to deal with the hard stuff. You don't have to go out into life and deal with this dumpster fire that is 2026 so far. There's a feeling of crawling back through the birth canal of like, no, thank you. And what I'm really getting here is like, don't do that. Don't do that to yourself, because I just heard 7 long years of winter, but like, isn't that like a fairy tale or something? I don't know. There's this feeling of don't go back into hibernation, because it's gonna keep you stuck for a long time, is kind of the feeling that came through with it. You are fierce, and you have Kali, and she is the fiercest. She has her swords. She's gonna liberate you. Um, So Isis and Kali are just like, you're going through a time of rebirth. Don't let yourself be tempted to try to get stuck in the birth canal or go back, because you can't go back. That's what I'm hearing now. You will get stuck in the birth canal. You might want to go back to the comfort of the womb, but you can't. You've already started going through this process of rebirth. It's hard. It's uncomfortable. It's tight. It's really squeezing you, right? But when you make it through, when you keep doing what you need to do, the universe is birthing you. The universe is doing the work of pushing you through the canal. You just have to play your part. You have to do your work, and they'll do their work. And when you're reborn, that is when the liberation happens. But the liberation happens when you act as this reborn version of yourself. And that's when you'll have the liberation. And it feels extremely significant to me this year and the years to come, actually, that women stop living in this version of themselves that allows themselves to be victimized, or to play small, or to believe that things aren't possible for them, because men don't feel that way. Men never live that way. As much as we're embodying this feminine, reclaiming and embodying the feminine nature of nurturing, caring for, receiving, we can be too much in that, and we need to embody the Kali version, the feminine energy, for a little bit. We need to be fierce in our liberation, fierce in our rebirth, unapologetic in who we've become and where we're going. We have to embody that. And that's having the balance of the masculine and feminine within ourselves. Like Kali and Athena, actually, I think Athena is a little bit of a problematic version in the myths, and I'm going to rewrite a lot of her myths. I think Kali probably has a lot of problematic things as well. I'm not so versed on all of her myths, but she is a great example of, she's a feminine goddess, and she's one of the fiercest. Just because you're in your feminine energy does not mean that you cannot also embody the masculine energy of the passion and the go and the do and the fighting for what you believe in. We have to embody that version for the next few years. Again, it's just this feeling of like, no one's coming to save us. We have to do this together. We have to band together as women and do it. And I'm not saying, and everyone has their different roles to play in this. So I'm not saying everybody has to be crazy vocal and out there and whatever. It's just that you can't hide it anymore. We can't be hiding it anymore. You can't be choosing the comfortable conversation instead of the uncomfortable. You have to be confrontational if someone in your life says something crazy problematic. You have to not hide your beliefs around that. You have to be able to have these conversations, to express yourself authentically in these situations, and to wake up. There's a lot of women who have been waking up, but there's still so many women who are not awake to not only the damage inflicted upon them, but also the damage that they inflict upon other women, and the way that patriarchy is not only going to be changed on the backs of women, but it has continuously been able to function and run on the backs of women, right? There's so many red threads here when you wake up, that you start to see that men aren't doing anything but destroying a lot of stuff right now, right? And historically, especially the world leaders, that's what they've been doing. I feel like now I'm about to go on a rant. Um, but the women keep it going, during the world wars, no matter which way you want to look at it. I think if you have a very broad view of things, nothing was altruistic. That's the thing in war. Nothing is ever altruistic in war. Countries don't enter war out of the goodness of their hearts. They enter war because resources or their own supply chains are threatened, or there's money to be had, or something. It's never altruistic when you realize this. and you take a step back and stop identifying with your country. You are a person on the world. We're all connected in that way. It doesn't matter where you come from. But when you kind of realize these kind of things, and you realize that all the men went to war and all the women built the machines, all the women kept the world going. It's the same thing when you look back at old communities and old villages. The women kept the towns going. But back then, when they were matriarchal, it was peaceful. They were building the buildings, they were building the pottery, they were building connections with the other neighboring tribes while the men were off hunting, right? The same thing happens, but instead of hunting, it's war and domination and greed. And then the women are raising the children in the household. They're doing the jobs below the levels of decision making where they actually have any influence. And they're continuing these harmful rhetorics around what it means to be a woman. If I see one more post that's like trad wife or not trad wife or whatever, like everybody just needs to wake up. Stop fighting with each other about this. Women should be able to choose whatever they want to choose to do. If they want to stay home and bake bread all day, that should be fine. What's not okay is telling other women that you're a bad woman because you're not being home baking bread and taking care of your children. Same thing with career women. If you don't want to have kids and you want to be a career woman, the stereotypical career woman, that's great. I love that for you. Make change with what you do. Don't hate on women who are home as trad wives. Like, stop it. You know, I feel like that's the general issue is everybody's always just, you're different than me or you have a different view than me. And it's like, we all have the same wants and needs. I turned this into a rant, but Kali and Isis probably influenced that, if I'm honest, because that's the energy. But it's very much this rebirth, this wake up, liberate yourself. You have to be responsible for your own decisions, your own choices. There's always help and support from the universe, but ultimately you're the one doing it. Now, there are definitely caveats where the earth gives you or the universe gives you a big old boot in the ass to do it, but you're the one doing it. You are ultimately the one who will make the decision. You can continue to cling on to every single little scrap of that and hold on to it, but that's to your detriment. The universe is giving you chances. Take them. Okay. That being said, again, if the name of the podcast changes, you'll know why. If the name of any of my Instagram changes, you'll know why. If you're in Copenhagen, I would love to meet you if you want to come join us at the Women's Circle. It's 200 kroner. It's, 3 hours, 2 hours. And it's always a lovely group of women. We always have a really nice time. It's not trauma dumping and, crying together and invasive eye contact. It's none of that stuff. It's mostly like a guided somatic visualization, some guided journaling after, so you can go a bit deeper and start to feel into these things that came up. And then we always do a little ritual together. This one will be around spring. I'm still waiting for it to download in. It's always something that comes through for me. And then we do cards and we just hang out and talk, get to know each other. Last time we went out for brunch after, it was super nice. So if you want to join, please do. It's always a great time. Remember to like, share, subscribe, reach out to me on Embodied Witchcraft if you want to have a chat. If anything I said around the branding, the expression, how you do it publicly and visibly without making it feel super scary, well, it'll still be scary, but I'll help you understand how you can get through it. Trust me. But if any of that sounds interesting, please reach out to me. I would love to have a talk. I'm looking for more clients now that I've worked with a couple people and I know what my framework is. Everybody was really happy with it. So I think I'm ready to make it more public now. But yeah, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. This is coming out on the full moon eclipse, so take care of yourself, babies. Rest, water, full moon ritual. I will put it up on my Instagram page. So then I'll do a full moon eclipse ritual. Maybe I'll even do meditation or something. That could be nice, right? Okay, I love you all. Have a wonderful week. I will talk to you later. Bye.